Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never thought the holidays could turn into a nightmare, but that December in 2025 changed everything. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 28 years old working as a software engineer in Seattle. Life was predictable: long hours coding for a tech startup, video calls with my family back in Montana, and the occasional hike in the Cascades. But when my mom called in late November, her voice trembling, I knew something was wrong. "Emily, your Uncle Harlan passed away," she said. "Heart attack, they think. But he left the old family cabin to you in his will." Uncle Harlan was my dad's estranged brother, a reclusive veteran who'd lived alone in the woods outside Bozeman for decades. I'd only met him a handful of times as a kid, during awkward family reunions where he'd stare off into the distance, muttering about shadows in the snow. Dad always said Harlan had PTSD from his time in Afghanistan, but there were whispers of something more: mental illness, maybe even a breakdown after his wife vanished in a blizzard back in 1998. No one ever found her body. I hadn't planned on visiting Montana that winter. With the economy still reeling from the 2024 recession, flights were expensive and work was piling up. But Mom insisted, "The cabin's yours now. Come home for Christmas. We can sort through his things together." Guilt won out. I booked a flight to Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport, arriving on December 20th amid a fresh dump of snow. The drive to the cabin in my rental SUV was treacherous, winding roads flanked by dense pine forests, the kind where cell service drops to nothing. The cabin sat on 50 acres of isolated land in the Bridger Mountains, a two-story log structure built in the 1920s by my great-grandfather. It looked picturesque from afar, with icicles hanging like daggers from the eaves and smoke curling from the chimney. Mom and Dad had arrived earlier to air it out, but up close it felt off. The windows were fogged and the front door creaked like it hadn't been oiled in years. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of pine sap mixed with something metallic, like old blood. Harlan's belongings were scattered: yellowed newspapers from the early 2000s, a collection of military medals, and stacks of journals bound with twine. "He was a hoarder," Dad grumbled, helping me unload my bags. Mom busied herself in the kitchen, prepping for Christmas Eve dinner. My younger brother Jake, a 24-year-old grad student from Missoula, showed up later that evening, blasting hip-hop from his truck speakers. That first night we tried to make it festive. We strung lights on a scraggly tree Jake dragged in from the woods, sipped hot cocoa spiked with bourbon, and shared stories. But as the wind howled outside, rattling the shutters, I couldn't shake a unease. Harlan's journals caught my eye on the bookshelf. I flipped through one absent-mindedly while the others watched an old holiday movie on the ancient TV. The entries started normal: daily logs of weather, wildlife sightings. But around 2010, they turned strange. "Saw her again in the trees, eyes like coals, whispering my name." Her? His wife, maybe? I shrugged it off as delirium. Harlan had been alone too long. Sleep came fitfully in the upstairs bedroom, the one Harlan had used. The mattress sagged and the room was freezing despite the wood stove downstairs. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a scratching sound, like nails on wood. I sat up, heart pounding. It stopped. Probably a branch against the window, I told myself. But then it came again, closer, from inside the walls. The next morning, December 21st, I mentioned it to the family over breakfast. Jake laughed. "City girl spooked by the woods?" "It's just mice, Em." Dad nodded, but Mom looked worried. Harlan used to complain about noises too. Said the cabin had memories. We spent the day clearing out Harlan's junk. In the basement, we found a locked trunk. Jake pried it open with a crowbar. Inside, faded photos of Harlan's wife, Eliza, a beautiful woman with sharp features and dark hair. There were newspaper clippings about her disappearance. "Local woman vanishes in storm. Search called off." And a map of the property, marked with red X's in the forest, labeled sightings. "What the hell?" Jake muttered. Dad's face paled. "Your uncle was obsessed. He thought Eliza didn't die, that something took her. We laughed it off, but the seed of doubt was planted. That afternoon, I hiked the property alone, needing fresh air. The snow was knee-deep, crunching under my boots. The forest was silent, unnaturally so. No birds, no wind. About a mile in, I found a clearing with a frozen pond. Something glinted in the ice. A necklace. I knelt to look closer, but a whisper stopped me. "Emily!" I spun around. Nothing. Just trees. My pulse raced. It had to be the wind. But as I hurried back, I swear I saw a shadow flit between the pines. A figure in white, gone in a blink. That evening, suspense built like a storm. We gathered around the fire, but the mood was tense. Jake suggested a game, truth or dare, to lighten things up. On my turn, I chose truth. "What's your biggest fear?" he asked. "Being alone," I admitted. "Like Harlan." Mom changed the subject, but later, as we prepped dinner, she pulled me aside. "Emily, there's something I never told you. Harlan and your dad, they had a falling out over Eliza. Your dad was there the night she disappeared. He said it was an accident, but Harlan accused him of hiding something." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "He thought Dad was involved. Jealousy, maybe. Eliza and Dad were close before she married Harlan." It felt like the ground shifted. Was that the backstory? Family secrets buried in snow? Night fell early, the shortest day of the year. I couldn't sleep. The scratching returned, louder. I grabbed my phone's flashlight and crept downstairs. The basement door was ajar. I'd sworn we'd locked it. Descending the creaky stairs, the air grew colder, my breath visible. At the bottom, the trunk was open again, photos scattered. One caught my eye. Eliza, pregnant, smiling. Harlan had never mentioned a child. Did she lose it? Or... A thump upstairs. I raced back, heart hammering. The living room was empty, but the front door swung open. Snow drifting in. Footprints led outside. Bare feet, small like a woman's. "Jake? Mom!" I called. No answer. Panic rising, I bundled up and followed the tracks into the woods. The moon cast eerie shadows, turning the forest into a labyrinth. The prints ended at the pond, where the ice cracked like a spiderweb. There in the center, a dark shape under the surface. I edged closer, slipping on the edge. The ice groaned. Peering down, I saw a face. Pale, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. "Eliza?" "No, it was Mom." I screamed, scrambling back. But when I looked again, it was gone. Hallucination? The wind picked up, whispering my name again. "Emily, join us." I ran back to the cabin, bursting inside. Everyone was there, asleep on the couches. Had I imagined it? No. The door was still open. Shaking, I woke them. "Something's out there." Dad rubbed his eyes. "Em, it's just the storm. Go back to bed." But Jake looked spooked. I heard it too. Whispers. We barricaded the doors, stoked the fire. As the night wore on, stories poured out. Dad confessed. The night Eliza vanished, he'd argued with her. She was leaving Harlan pregnant with his child. "It was a mistake," he whispered. "She ran into the storm. We searched, but..." Harlan had known. That's why the estrangement. The cabin wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was cursed by guilt. December 22nd dawned gray. We decided to leave, but a blizzard hit, dumping 2 feet of snow. Roads closed, power flickered, no escape. That day we explored more. In Harlan's attic we found audio recordings, dated up to 2025. His voice raspy. "She's back. Every winter solstice she calls, takes one of us." Solstice was yesterday. Chills ran down my spine. By evening the power died. Candles cast dancing shadows. We huddled together, but Jake grew restless. "I need air," he said, stepping outside despite our pleas. Minutes stretched. Then a scream pierced the night. We rushed out. Jake's tracks led to the pond. There on the ice, his body. Frozen solid, eyes staring blankly. "No!" Mom wailed. Dad grabbed a shovel, but the ice held firm. As we retreated, the whispers grew louder, circling us. Back inside, terror gripped us. "It's her," Dad said. "Eliza. She wants revenge." But it wasn't just her. The journals revealed more. Great-grandfather had built the cabin on Native American burial grounds, displacing spirits. Eliza's disappearance awakened them. Every generation, they claimed a life during the solstice. We were next. December 23rd. Snow kept falling. No signal, no help. Mom vanished next, gone while fetching wood. We found her shawl at the pond's edge, blood-stained. Dad and I barricaded ourselves upstairs. He confessed everything. He'd pushed Eliza that night, accidental in the heat of argument. She fell through the ice. Harlan covered it up, but the guilt drove him mad. As night fell, the scratching became pounding. The door splintered. A figure emerged, ethereal, draped in white, face twisted in rage. Eliza, but her eyes, they weren't human. Something ancient lurked within. Dad lunged at her, screaming apologies. It, enveloped him in shadow. His cries echoed, then silence. Alone now, I backed into the corner. The entity turned to me. "Daughter," it whispered. "The child? Me? No, impossible. But the dates. Eliza pregnant in 97, me born in 97. The realization hit like ice water. Dad wasn't my father. Harlan was. And Eliza, my mother." The spirit reached out, cold fingers grazing my skin. "Come home." I fought, but the pull was irresistible. The pond called. December 24th, Christmas Eve. If anyone finds this, Harlan's last journal where I'm scribbling now. Stay away. The woods hunger, the snow hides secrets. As I step outside, the whispers welcome me. The family reunited at last. Story 2, I never believed in ghosts until the winter of 2025, when the fog rolled into Astoria thicker than I'd ever seen it. I'm Jake Harlan, a 34-year-old lineman for Pacific Power, born and raised in this forgotten corner of Oregon. Astoria sits at the mouth of the Columbia River, where the Pacific crashes against cliffs like it's angry at the world. December hit us hard that year. Endless rain, winds howling through the old pilings of the waterfront, and temperatures dropping to where your breath freezes mid-sentence. But it wasn't the weather that broke me. It was the whispers. It started on December 1st. I was up on a pole near the Youngs River Falls, fixing a line snapped by a fallen Douglas fir. The forest there is ancient, remnants of the logging boom from the 1800s. Back then, Astoria was Timber King, mills churning day and night, ships loaded with logs bound for San Francisco. But in 1923, the Astoria Logging Company disaster changed everything. A crew of 17 Irish immigrants, led by foreman Elias Crow, was clear-cutting a ridge called Blackthorn Hill. A storm hit, burying them under a landslide of mud and massive trunks. Official reports said they suffocated, but locals whispered about Crow's curse. He was a brutal man, they said, who hanged workers for slowing down. On his last night, he swore the hill would claim anyone who disturbed it again. Rescue teams found only 12 bodies. The rest vanished, chalked up to the river. I shook off the old tales as I climbed down that afternoon, my boots crunching frozen leaves. My radio crackled. "Jake, you done? Shift's over. Beers at the bow picker?" It was my buddy Mike, voice tinny through static. I keyed back, "Yeah, heading in." But as I packed my tools, I heard it, a low murmur like wind through hollow logs but forming words. "Stay, stay." I froze, heart thudding. Just the river, I told myself. Echoes off the falls. That night at my apartment on 17th Street overlooking the Columbia Bar, where more ships have wrecked than anywhere on the West Coast, I couldn't sleep. The fog pressed against my window like a living thing, and the whispers returned, faint through the vents. Jake, Harlan, stay, my last name. How? I lived alone since my divorce. No neighbors close enough. I blasted the TV, some Netflix true crime about the Clatsop County disappearances, but it only made the silence louder when I turned it off. December 3rd, Mike and I were stringing new wire along the highway toward Blackthorn Hill. The road was slick with ice, Christmas lights flickering dimly in Seaside below. "You look like shit, man," Mike said, handing me coffee from his thermos. "Bad dreams?" I shrugged it off. We parked near the trailhead, an overgrown path marked by rusted logging chains. As we hiked up, tools slung over shoulders, the fog swallowed us. Visibility dropped to 10 feet. That's when Mike heard it first. You get that? He stopped, head cocked. A rustle, then a voice, muffled, urgent. Help. Us. We both whipped around, flashlights cutting nothing but mist. Bear? I muttered. Mike laughed nervously. Bears don't talk, dumbass. But his eyes were wide. We pushed on, stringing wire in silence. Halfway up, I spotted it. A fresh cut in the earth, like a grave unearthed. Inside, splintered wood and bones. Human femur, yellowed and cracked. What the hell? Mike snapped photos on his phone. We gotta call this in. Sheriff's deputy arrived by dusk. Carla Ruiz, tough as nails, Astoria born like me. She poked at the bones with a stick. Old? Probably from the 23 slide? Ground shifts and freezes like this. But she lingered, shining her light deeper. Something glinted. A silver locket engraved EC 1923. Elias Crow. Bag it, she ordered. And Harlan, keep this quiet. Tourists will swarm. I tried to forget, but the whispers followed me home. Louder now, overlapping. Jake? Dig. Find us. I bolted upright at 2 a.m., sweating. My phone buzzed, a text from Mike. Dude, same shit here. Voices saying my name. You hearing this? December 5th brought the first snow, blanketing Blackthorn in white. Work halted, but Mike dragged me back up after dark. Can't sleep with that noise. We checked the site. Flashlights bobbed through the woods, snow muffling our steps. The grave was gone, covered smooth like it never was. But higher up near the ridge we found tracks. Not animal, boots, size 10, same as mine, circling a cluster of stumps. In the center, a circle of stones, charred black, with a crude carving, crow. The whispers exploded then, a chorus rattling our skulls. Join us. Harlan, Mike yelped, dropping his light. Run! We bolted downhill, branches whipping our faces. Halfway, Mike tripped into a root tangle. Old logging cable, rusted but taut. It snapped around his ankle, yanking him into the earth. A sinkhole swallowing him to the waist. Jake, pull! His face was gray, terror pure. I grabbed his arms, heaving as mud sucked him down. The voices laughed, deep, gurgling. Stay. Forever. We got him out barely. Covered in slime, coughing dirt. Bones in there, he gasped. Hands, grabbing. We drove to the ER in Warrenton. Mike stitched up, me pacing. Doc said exposure, hallucination. Bullshit. By December 8th, Mike was off work, holed up in his trailer by the pier. I visited, found him twitchy, windows taped shut. They're in the walls, Jake. Elias and his crew. Want us to cut again. Finish the hill. He showed me his phone. Videos of fog outside forming faces. Distorted screams on playback. I believed him now. That night, alone, I researched. Old Astoria dispatch archives. Elias Crow wasn't just brutal. He sacrificed the last 5 men, throats slit over the stones, to appease the hill spirits, buying time for the logs. Their bodies, never found. Ground swallowed them. The whispers demanded I return. Dig Harlan. Free us. December 10th. I drove up alone at midnight, shovel from my truck bed. Snow crunched under tires. At the circle, I dug. Earth parted easy, unnaturally. 2 feet down, cloth scraps, boots decayed to leather, then hands, cold, bony fingers clawing up, wrapping my wrist. I screamed, wrenching free, but the voices pinned me. You are... Crow. Flashback hit like lightning. Not mine, theirs. Elias's memories flooded. The storm raging, men begging as he drove the axe. The hill takes what it wants, I'd bellowed, blood on snow. Then the slide, logs crushing, mud filling lungs. But not death, trapped, aware, rotting in the dark for a century. Waiting for new blood to cut the hill again, release them. I fled, but Astoria felt wrong now. Streets empty despite holiday lights on Commercial Avenue. Billboards for the Christmas ship parade flickered, but no crowds. At home, mirrors showed my face. Changing. jaw squaring, eyes hollowing like Elias's grainy photo. December 15th, Mike vanished. His trailer door ajar, coffee mug warm, phone looping his last video, fog faces chanting, "Cut, cut." Carla called me in. "Harlan, you know something?" Her eyes darted to shadows. I lied, but she wasn't buying. That night she texted, "Heard them, on the hill. Help." We met at dawn December 17th, shovels and ropes. Blackthorn was alive, trees creaking without wind, snow swirling into shapes, whispers everywhere. Carla. Jake. Join. We reached the circle. Mike's boot stuck out, half buried. We dug frantically. His body emerged, chest crushed, mouth frozen in a scream, locket around his neck. Carla retched. We burn it. Matches struck, flames licking stones. But the fire roared unnaturally, forming faces in the blaze. Logs groaned uphill, the slide restarting, mud avalanche swallowing our gear. Run! We sprinted, but Carla twisted an ankle. I turned back, her hand in mine, then gone. Sucked under, eyes pleading above mud. Alone I stumbled to my truck as the hill roared, trees toppling like dominoes. Radio scream warnings. Evacuate Astoria! Landslide! But fog blocked the bridge to Washington. I drove south on 101, tires slipping, whispers in the cab. Harlan, you're us now. December 20th, holed up in a seaside motel, TV blared, Astoria disaster, dozens missing in Blackthorn Slide. Search for Jake Harlan ongoing. My face on screen, wanted for questioning. But I saw it. My reflection, Elias's eyes staring back. They were free now, cutting through new hosts. I hear them still, even here. Cut. The hill. Forever. I won't go back. But tonight, December 24th, Christmas Eve, the fog's rolling in again. Knocking at the door, soft voices calling my name. Story 3, I pulled into the driveway of 47 Elm Street in Milford, Maine, just as the first snowflakes of December 2025 began to dust the windshield. It was the kind of small town you'd see in a postcard, quaint colonial houses, a frozen pond at the center, and pines that whispered secrets in the wind. I'd moved here from Boston after my divorce from Mark, seeking a fresh start as a high school English teacher at Milford High. The house was a rental, cheap because of its age, built in 1892 with creaky floors and a basement that smelled like damp earth. Little did I know the real estate agent had left out the part about the whispers. My name is Sarah Jenkins, 38 years old, with a penchant for black coffee and mystery novels. I'd always been practical, raised in a suburb of Chicago by parents who dismissed anything supernatural as overactive imagination. But that first night, unpacking boxes in the living room, I heard it, a faint murmur like someone reciting a poem from behind the walls. I chalked it up to the old pipes settling in the cold. December in Maine hits hard. Temperatures plunge below zero, and the wind howls like a banshee. I turned up the heat and went to bed, burying myself under quilts. The next morning I met my neighbor, Dr. Elias Thorne. He was in his late 60s, retired from some vague medical research job at a lab in Portland. Tall, with wire-rimmed glasses and a beard-streaked gray, he waved from his porch across the street. "Welcome to Milford, Ms. Jenkins," he called, his voice carrying over the snow-covered lawns. "If you need anything, I'm just a holler away." I smiled and waved back, but something in his eyes unnerved me. Too intense, like he was sizing me up. School started smoothly. The kids were polite, bundled in parkas against the biting cold. We were reading Edgar Allan Poe, which felt fitting with the early sunsets and long nights. But by mid-December, the whispers returned, not just at night, but during the day. I'd be grading papers at the kitchen table when I'd hear fragments. The cycle, December 25th, blood for renewal. I searched the house thinking maybe a radio was left on or squirrels were in the attic. Nothing. I even called a plumber, who found no issues but charged me $200 anyway. One evening, after a staff meeting, I stopped at the local library, a cozy building on Main Street with shelves groaning under dusty tomes. The librarian, Mrs. Harriet Voss, a plump woman in her 70s with cat-eye glasses, eyed me curiously. New in town. Teaching at the high school? I nodded, asking if there were any books on local history. She pointed me to a section on Milford's past. That's where I found the first clue. Flipping through Echoes of Milford, A Town's Hidden Tales, by a local historian named Samuel Reed, published in 1998, I read about the December disappearances. In 1975, exactly 50 years ago, 5 residents vanished on Christmas Eve. No bodies, no traces, just empty homes and untouched holiday dinners. The victims, a doctor, a teacher, a librarian, a mechanic, and a young mother. Investigations pointed to a cult rumor, something about renewing the land through ritual, but it was dismissed as urban legend. The town sealed the records and life moved on. Chills ran down my spine. My house was listed as one of the sites. An old doctor lived there back then. I drove home that night with the book clutched in my lap, the roads slick with ice. Snow was falling heavier now, blanketing everything in white silence. As I parked, I noticed Dr. Thorne's lights were on, his silhouette moving behind the curtains. Was he watching me? Paranoia, I told myself. But that night, the whispers grew louder, almost coherent. Sarah, join the cycle, December 25th. I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I ventured into the basement, flashlight in hand. The air was thick, musty, with stacks of old boxes from previous tenants. In the corner, under a tarp, I found a wooden chest, locked but rusted. I pried it open with a crowbar from the garage. Inside, yellow journals, dated from the 1970s. They belonged to Dr. Harlan Crow, the former owner, a physician obsessed with immortality. Entries detailed experiments with essence transfer, drawing from Native American lore, twisted with modern science. He believed every 50 years on the winter solstice aligning with Christmas, the veil thinned, allowing souls to swap bodies for eternal life. The disappearances, sacrifices to fuel the ritual. My hands trembled as I read. Crow wrote of recruiting locals, promising youth and power. But something went wrong. The souls rebelled, trapping him in limbo. The last entry. December 24th, 1975. The cycle begins anew. They come for me. I slammed the journal shut, heart pounding. This couldn't be real. It was just a madman's ramblings. The next day, December 18th, I confronted Mrs. Voss at the library. What do you know about the 1975 disappearances? Her face paled. Best not to dig up old graves, dear. Some things are better forgotten. She glanced nervously at the door, as if expecting someone. That afternoon at school, one of my students, Tommy Hale, a quiet 16-year-old with freckles and a hoodie, slipped me a note. Don't trust Thorne. He's not who he seems. When I asked him after class, he bolted, mumbling about family secrets. Suspicion gnawed at me. I started watching Dr. Thorne's house. Lights flickered at odd hours, and once I swore I saw shadows moving. Not one, but multiple, like a gathering. On December 20th, I knocked on his door, feigning neighborly concern with a plate of cookies. He invited me in, his home immaculate with medical books lining the shelves. Settling in well? He asked, pouring tea. His hands were steady, but his eyes darted to a framed photo on the mantel. A group of 5 people from the 70s, including a man who looked eerily like a younger Thorne. But the caption read, Dr. Harlan Crow and Associates. Who's that? I pointed, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. He smiled thinly. An old mentor, passed away years ago. Liar, I thought. As I left, he said, Milford has a way of keeping its own. Be careful in the snow, Sarah. That night, the whispers evolved into voices, multiple, overlapping. Renewal, blood, 5 must fall. I barricaded the doors, called the police. Sheriff Dale Wilkins, a burly man with a mustache, came over. Probably the wind, ma'am. Old houses play tricks. But as he left, I noticed his badge number, 1975. Coincidence? Or something more? December 22nd brought a blizzard. Power lines snapped, plunging the town into darkness. Candles flickered in my living room as I pored over the journals again. Crow had detailed the ritual. On Christmas Eve, at midnight, in the old mill by the pond, now abandoned, the chosen 5 would gather. blood offering to anchor the souls. If interrupted, the cycle broke forever. But who were the five now? I pieced it together. Me, the teacher, Mrs. Voss, librarian, Sheriff Wilkins, lawman, like the mechanic's role in maintaining order, Tommy's mother, young parent, and Thorn Crow as the doctor. Tommy's note made sense. His family was involved, perhaps descendants. I tried to leave town, but the roads were impassable, snowdrifts piling high, phone lines down, internet spotty, isolation pressed in. That evening, a knock at the door, Tommy shivering, hood up. "They're coming for you, Miss Jenkins. My grandpa was part of it in '75. Thorn, he's not human anymore. He took over bodies. We have to stop him." We huddled by the fire as Tommy spilled the backstory. His grandfather was the mechanic who vanished. Before disappearing, he left a hidden letter warning of Crow's madness, a serum derived from rare herbs and electromagnetic pulses during solstice storms, allowing soul transference. But it required fresh vessels every cycle, or the host decayed. Thorn was Crow, body hopping for decades, recruiting anew. "We burn the mill," Tommy said. "Destroy the altar he built." It sounded insane, but the voices in the walls agreed, urging us on. We geared up, flashlights, matches, gasoline from the garage, and trudged through the storm to the old mill, a crumbling structure by the frozen pond. Wind whipped snow into our faces as we approached. Lights glowed inside, candles circling a stone slab stained dark. Figures huddled, Mrs. Voss bound and gagged, Sheriff Wilkins chanting, Tommy's mother dazed, and Thorn in a robe, knife in hand. "Ah, the final two," he grinned, eyes glowing unnaturally. "The cycle completes." Tommy lunged, but Wilkins grabbed him. I dodged, splashing gasoline. "This ends now, Crow!" I shouted, striking a match. Flames erupted, consuming the wood. Thorn howled, lunging at me with the knife. We grappled in the snow, his strength inhuman. "You can't stop renewal," he snarled. The fire spread, illuminating faces, ghostly apparitions of the 1975 victims rising from the smoke, pulling at Thorn. He screamed as they dragged him into the blaze, his body convulsing, aging rapidly before crumbling to ash. We escaped as the mill collapsed, sirens wailing in the distance, power restored, alarms triggered. Mrs. Voss and Tommy's mother were freed, dazed but alive. Wilkins perished in the fire, his secrets with him. The town called it a tragic accident, blaming faulty wiring. But I know the truth. The whispers stopped. Milford thawed with the new year, but I left back to Boston, vowing never to return. Sometimes in quiet moments, I wonder if the cycle truly broke. December 2075 looms after all. Story 4. I never believed in ghosts until Blackwood Hollow got inside my head. It started with a wrong turn off Route 7 in southern Vermont, December 17th, 2025. I was Ethan Carver, 34, a freelance IT guy from Burlington hauling server parts to a client in Bennington. Snow flurries dusted the windshield of my beat-up Ford F-150 as the GPS glitched. Common in these hills where cell service dies like clockwork. Recalculating, it droned before spitting me onto Blackwood Road, a forgotten spur lined with skeletal maples and no trespassing signs half buried in drifts. I'd heard the name once, at a diner in Rutland. Old-timers muttered about Blackwood Hollow like it was cursed ground. Backstory went like this. In 1892, the Blackwood family, mill owners who'd clawed wealth from the paper industry, vanished overnight from their mansion on the hill. No bodies, no blood, just an empty house with breakfast plates still warm. Locals whispered of the Hollow's hunger, some native Abenaki legend about spirits trapped in the valley, feeding on the living to escape. By 1920, the mansion burned. Arson, they said, but rebuilds kept failing. Last one was a commune in the 70s that ended in mass hysteria. 7 dead ruled suicides. Now it sat abandoned, a rotting skeleton against the Green Mountains. Off limits since a 2018 collapse killed 2 urban explorers. I didn't plan to stop, but the truck sputtered, fuel line frozen, probably from the sub-zero wind chill. Dashboard read 14 degrees Fahrenheit, dropping fast. No bars on my phone, no plow trucks this deep in. Smoke curled from the mansion's chimney. Someone was there. Hiking up the rutted drive, boots crunching fresh powder, I smelled wood smoke and something metallic, like pennies. The mansion loomed, Victorian bones with sagging porches, windows like empty eyes. Front door ajar, a keep out sign dangling. I knocked anyway. No answer. Inside it was warmer. Fire crackling in a grand hearth. Logs stacked neat. Faded wallpaper peeled, showing horsehair plaster. A note on the mantel. Strangers welcome. Food in kitchen. E.B. E.B. Had to be Elias Blackwood, descendant maybe? I rummaged the pantry. Canned beans, jerky, fresh venison from a local hunt. Gratitude hit hard. Vermont winters chew up the unprepared. I texted my wife Sarah, back in Burlington. Stuck in storm, found shelter. Home tomorrow, love you. Message failed, no signal. Night fell like a blackout. I barricaded in the parlor, fire my only light. That's when the whisper started. Faint, like wind through cracks, but words. Ethan, stay. I froze. Hallucination from exhaustion? I checked the windows, snow howling, nothing else. Drifted off, clutching my Leatherman. Woke to footsteps upstairs. Heavy, deliberate, circling the creaks. Flashlight beam cut shadows. Dust motes dancing. A grandfather clock frozen at 3:17 a.m. Time of the Blackwoods' disappearance. I called out, "Hello? Elias?" Silence. Then from the walls, whispers again. "Join us. Ethan." By morning, blizzard raged. 2 feet down, roads vanished. Phone dead, battery drained overnight despite 80%. I explored. Kitchen had a ledger, yellowed pages, December 17th, 1892. Elias saw the hollow. It hungers. Modern entries too. 2025 handwriting. They come at night. Don't listen. Heart pounding, I found the attic stairs. Footprints in dust led up. Fresh ones, size 12 men's boots. Up there, amid cobwebs and trunks, a Polaroid camera from the 70s commune. Film inside. Photos of gaunt faces, eyes hollow, mouths open in screams. Last one. A man like me. Trucker jacket, dated December 2024. My jacket. No, impossible. But the whispers laugh now, echoing, "Ethan Carver, we know you." Panic clawed. I bolted downstairs, grabbed keys, shoveled out the truck. Engine roared. Miracle. But as I crested the hill, rear view showed the mansion door slamming shut. Whispers in my head. "You'll return." Made Bennington by noon. Job done. Sarah picked me up, worried sick. "You look like hell," she said. That night in our South Burlington apartment, the whispers returned. Faint at first, then screams. Blackwood's pleading, "Feed it!" I blasted NPR podcasts to drown them. Sarah thought stress. December 20th. News alert on my phone. Vermont State Police. Body found in Blackwood Hollow Mansion. Unidentified male, early 30s, apparent suicide. Truck matching missing Burlington IT worker Ethan Carver nearby. My truck? I raced to the station. Trooper Hayes, grizzled from 25 winters, showed photos. My F-150, snowed in, plates matching. Inside the mansion, a man hang from attic rafters, face blurred in the pic. But my build, my jacket. "I'm Ethan Carver," I stammered. "That's me, alive." Fingerprints rushed, match. But the dead guy? No ID, yet his phone held my text to Sarah, time-stamped yesterday. Sarah arrived, pale. "Ethan, you haven't been home since the 17th. I've been calling your boss. You never delivered the servers." Reality cracked. I drove back alone, December 22nd. Snow chains rattling. Mansion unchanged, chimney smoking. Inside, my handwriting in the ledger. Ethan saw the hollow. It hungers. Photos in attic. 2 of me now. 1 alive, 1 dead. Whispers roared, "We are the hollow. You fed us. Now join." Shadows thickened. Figures emerging. Blackwoods all. Translucent. Hands outstretched. Elias led, eyes black voids. "Strangers bring life. We take it." I ran, but doors sealed. Truck gone. Phone buzzed. Sarah. Ethan, where are you? Police say you're dead. Battery full again. December 24th, Christmas Eve. Troopers searched, found nothing. Empty mansion, no footprints. Sarah mourned at a vigil in Burlington. My suicide ruled accident. Frozen pipes sparked a fire that claimed me. But I'm still here, writing this on scavenged paper. Whispers circle. They need one more tonight. Midnight tolls. The hollow hunger's eternal. If you find this... Story 5. I never believed in ghosts until that winter in Elmwood, Vermont. It was December 2025, and the town was buried under a fresh blanket of snow, the kind that muffled every sound and made the world feel like it was holding its breath. I'd moved there 6 months earlier, fleeing the chaos of Boston after the accident that stole my family. My husband, Mark, and our little girl, Lily, they were gone in an instant on a rainy highway. A drunk driver, they said. I survived with scars that ran deeper than skin. Elmwood seemed like a quiet place to heal, a forgotten corner of New England where the houses were old and the people kept to themselves. Little did I know some secrets in this town weren't meant to stay buried. My name is Emily Carter, and at 32, I was starting over as a freelance writer, working from the creaky Victorian house I'd rented on Maple Street. It was cheap, too cheap I realized later, but it had charm. High ceilings, a stone fireplace, and an attic full of dust-covered relics from the previous owners. The landlord, an elderly man named Mr. Hargrove, had warned me about the drafts in the finicky boiler, but he never mentioned the whispers. At first I thought it was the wind howling through the pines outside my window. But as the days grew shorter, those whispers started to sound like words. It began on December 1st. I was unpacking the last of my boxes in the living room, stringing up some half-hearted Christmas lights to chase away the loneliness. The radio was on, playing holiday tunes from a local station in Burlington, but static kept interrupting. That's when I found the old photograph tucked behind a loose baseboard. It was faded, sepia-toned, showing a family from maybe the 1920s. A stern man, a woman with hollow eyes, and a child, a girl about Lily's age, with a doll clutched in her arms. On the back, scrawled in faded ink, "The Harlows, 1923. May God forgive us." I set it on the mantel, figuring it was a quirky piece of history. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard it, a soft giggle echoing from the attic. I told myself it was the house settling, but sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, I drove into town for groceries. Elmwood's main street was decked out for the holidays, wreaths on lampposts, a towering fir in the square, lit with LEDs that flickered in the daylight. I stopped at the diner, where locals nursed coffees and eyed me like the outsider I was. Old Mrs. Wilkins, the waitress with a face like weathered leather, poured my cup and asked about the house. "You settling in all right over on Maple?" she said, her voice low. "Yeah, it's cozy," I replied, forcing a smile. "Found an old photo of the Harlows. Know anything about them?" Her hand trembled, spilling a drop of coffee. "Best not to dig into that, dear. Folks say that house has a way of remembering." She hurried away, leaving me with a chill that had nothing to do with the snow outside. Back home, I couldn't shake her words. I fired up my laptop and searched online. Elmwood history, Harlow family. The results were sparse. A grainy article from the 1920s about Elias Harlow, a mill owner who vanished one winter night. His wife, Abigail, and daughter, Clara, were found frozen in the attic, posed like mannequins. Suicide, the papers called it, but rumors whispered of madness, of a curse tied to a family heirloom. I laughed it off. Small-town folklore. But that giggle returned that night, clearer now, like a child's voice calling Mama. By December 5th, the snowstorms hit hard. Power flickered, and I spent evenings by the fire, wrapped in blankets. I'd started hearing footsteps, small, pattering ones, pacing the hallway outside my bedroom. One night I grabbed a flashlight and crept upstairs to the attic. The door creaked open on rusted hinges, revealing trunks and cobwebs. In the corner under a sheet, I found it. An antique doll, porcelain face cracked, dressed in faded lace. Its eyes, glass unblinking, seemed to follow me. It looked just like the one in the photo. I picked it up and a wave of nausea hit me. The doll's head lolled, and from its mouth came a whisper, "Play with me." I dropped it and ran downstairs, heart pounding. Was I losing my mind? Grief does that, they say. Hallucinations, paranoia. I called my therapist in Boston, Dr. Reynolds, but the line crackled with static. "Emily, it's isolation," he said through the interference. "Get out more, join a group." But the snow was piling up, roads impassable. I was trapped. December 10th brought a thaw, enough for me to venture to the library. The building was a relic itself, shelves sagging under dusty tomes. The librarian, a bespectacled man named Mr. Thorne, helped me pull old records. "Harlow's, eh?" he muttered. "Tragic story. Elias was obsessed with spiritualism after the war. Bought a doll from a traveling medium, said it could channel the dead. Abigail claimed it spoke to Clara. Drove her mad." He showed me a yellow journal entry. "The doll whispers secrets. It knows what we did to the mill workers. Buried them in the foundation to hide the collapse. Their souls cry out." I felt sick. The mill, long abandoned, sat on the edge of town, where the river froze solid in winter. Had the Harlows covered up deaths for profit? And the doll, was it cursed? I left with photocopies, my mind racing. That night, the giggles turned to cries, sobbing, pleading. I barricaded myself in the bedroom, but sleep brought dreams. Lily's face on Clara's body, reaching for me from the attic. The suspense built like the gathering storm. On December 15th, I invited a neighbor over, Jake Thompson, a mechanic from down the street, burly and skeptical. "Heard you're spooked," he said, chuckling as he sipped beer by the fire. I showed him the doll, now sitting on the mantel where I'd stupidly placed it. "Creepy, sure, but it's just a toy." As we talked, the lights dimmed. A child's voice echoed. "Daddy's home." Jake paled. "What the hell?" We heard thumps from upstairs. Heavy footsteps now, like a man's boots. Jake bolted for the door, yelling, "Get out of that house!" Alone again, I researched more. Online forums, Reddit threads from 2024, mentioned similar hauntings in old New England homes. One user, anonymous, claimed, "The doll's a vessel. It feeds on grief, pulls in the lost." Was it targeting me because of Mark and Lily? I decided to destroy it. December 20th, I built a fire hotter than usual, tossed the doll in. It didn't burn at first, porcelain melting slowly, eyes staring as flames licked. Then a scream pierced the air, not from the fire, but from everywhere. The house shook, windows rattling. Relief was short-lived. Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2025. The town was festive, carolers singing under streetlights, but I stayed in, nursing hot cocoa laced with whiskey. Midnight struck, and the whispers returned. Multiple voices now murmuring accusations. "Murderer! Thief!" I realized it wasn't just the Harlows, the mill workers, the ones buried alive, their spirits tied to the doll, now free in the house. Shadows moved in the corners, forming shapes, twisted figures with hollow eyes. I grabbed my keys, intent on fleeing, but the door wouldn't budge. Snow piled against it, or something held it shut. Upstairs, the attic door slammed open. Footsteps descended, slow, deliberate. I hid in the closet, phone in hand, dialing 911. "Help! Someone's in my house!" The operator's voice. "Stay calm, ma'am. Units are en route." But then static and a child's giggle on the line. "Too late, Mama." The figures emerged, ethereal, rotting. Elias with his stern glare. Abigail weeping. Clara clutching nothing. And behind them, the workers. Gaunt men in tattered overalls, shovels in hand. They surrounded me, whispering my sins. Not theirs, but mine. The accident? I'd been texting, distracted. Mark had yelled, "Emily, watch the road." But I hadn't. It was my fault. The spirits knew, pulled from my guilt like threads. As sirens wailed in the distance, Clara's form shifted, became Lily, eyes accusatory. "Why, Mommy?" I screamed, backing into the wall. The house groaned, floorboards cracking as if the foundation, built on bones, gave way. They found me the next morning, Christmas Day, curled in the closet, babbling about ghosts. The house was intact, no signs of intrusion. Doctors called it a breakdown, prescribed pills. But I know the truth. The spirits wait, patient as winter. If you rent that house on Maple Street, listen closely. They whisper still. Story 6, I never believed in ghosts until the winter of 2025, when the lake froze over and started whispering my name. It was December 15th, Rochester, New York. Snow piled high on the rooftops of our quiet neighborhood in Iron Dequoit, the kind of place where everyone knows your business but pretends they don't. I'm Jake Harlan, 32, a software engineer grinding away at Kodak's remnants downtown. My wife, Sarah, taught third grade at McQuaid Jesuit. We had a 2-year-old Mia and a golden retriever named Buddy who hated the cold. Our split level on Shoreline Drive backed right onto Lake Ontario, prime real estate in summer, a frozen hell in winter. That night, the wind howled like a banshee off the lake. Sarah had just put Mia down when the power flickered. "Storm's coming," she said, peering out the frost-laced window. NOAA had warned of a polar vortex dipping south, the first big one since the 23 freeze that killed a dozen up here. I shrugged it off, cracking open a Labatt Blue from the garage fridge. But then Buddy started growling at the back door, hackles up, staring into the black nothing beyond the glass. "Easy, boy," I muttered, flipping on the porch light. The beam cut through swirling snow, illuminating the ice shelf extending 50 yards out from our shore. That's when I saw it. Footprints. Fresh ones, leading from the lake's edge straight to our deck. Barefoot prints, small like a child's, but deep as if the walker weighed a ton. No tracks leading back to the water. Just ending at our door. Sarah laughed it off. "Coyote or deer, happens every freeze." But I couldn't shake it. I grabbed my mag light and stepped out, boots crunching virgin snow. The prints were perfect, toes splayed, no claws. They stopped dead 6 inches from the door, like whatever made them had floated away. Buddy wouldn't follow. He whimpered inside. As I shone the light on the lake, I swear I heard it. A faint whisper, like wind through reeds, but shaped into words. "Jake." "Back inside," I told Sarah. She rolled her eyes. "You're spooked from that true crime pod you binge. Go to bed." Sleep didn't come easy. Dreams of drowning, of icy hands pulling me under. Next morning, December 16th, the news hit. A boy missing from Webster, 10 miles east. Tommy Whitaker, age 8. Last seen sledding near the lake 2 nights prior. His red mittens found frozen on the ice. No body. Drones and divers combed the shelf, but nothing. Rochester PD called it a tragic accident. Kids fall through thin ice all the time. But Tommy lived inland. Why was he out here? I drove to work past the sobering billboards. Lake Ontario, 42 lives claimed in 2025. Don't test the ice. At lunch, I scrolled local forums on Reddit, r/Rochester. Threads exploded about ice walkers. Old-timers claimed the lake birthed them every hard freeze. Backstory trickled in. 1892, the same stretch froze solid during the Great Blizzard. Irish immigrants building the New York Central Railroad huddled in shanty towns along the shore. A foreman, Elias Crow, brutal man, worked them to death. 50 men vanished one night, swallowed by a sudden crack in the ice. Locals said Elias pushed them, cursing their lazy bones as they begged for warmth. Bodies never surfaced. Since then, every December, vortex whispers lure the unwary onto the shelf. BS, I thought. Folklore for cabin fever. But that evening, driving home on I-390, my radio crackled. WWROC 13 reporting another sighting. Fishermen near Charlotte Pier saw a figure on the ice at dusk. Small, pale, beckoning. "Like a drowned kid," one said. "Tommy?" Sarah was late. Parent-teacher night. Mia babbled in her high chair, Buddy pacing. I checked the deck. The prints were gone, covered by fresh powder, but something new. Scratches on the doorframe, like tiny fingernails clawing up. Inside, the thermostat read 68, but the kitchen felt like a meat locker. Mia pointed at the window, giggling. Boy outside!" My blood froze. Through the glass and the gloaming, a shape huddled by the lake's edge. Small, shadowy, waving slowly. I blinked. It was gone. Heart pounding, I called Sarah. Voicemail. Texted, hurry home. Weird stuff. No reply. Night fell hard. Power out again. I lit candles, fire crackling in the hearth. Buddy barked furiously at the back door. I armed myself with a snow shovel and cracked it open. Wind blasted in, carrying that whisper. Jake. Cold. Help. Clear as day, a child's voice, desperate. I swept the maglite across the ice. There, 20 yards out, the figure. A boy, maybe 8, in tattered overalls, skin blue-white, eyes hollow pits. He waved, beckoning. Tommy Whitaker? But how? The shelf was inches thick. He'd plummet through. Stay back, I yelled, voice swallowed by the gale. He tilted his head, smiling. No, grinning, teeth black nubs. Then he turned, shuffling toward the dark heart of the lake, footprints trailing behind. Against every instinct I followed, shovel raised. Sarah's car wasn't home yet. What if it was the kid, lost, hypothermic? 10 yards out, the ice groaned. Whispers swelled, dozens now, overlapping. Join us. Elias waits. Footprints everywhere, circling, converging on a dark hole 50 yards off, a melt hole from geothermal vents below, steaming faintly. The boy knelt there, peering down. Hey, kid, I shouted. He looked back, face splitting into that grin. Not Tommy. Older, features blurred, like a daguerreotype come alive. Irish brogue hissed, come see the fireman, Jake. Warmth below. Fireman? Elias Crow. They called him that, legend said, for lighting lanterns to lure men onto thin ice before the blizzard. I backed up. Ice cracked underfoot. Buddy's distant howls pulled me shoreward. Slipping, sliding, I made the deck. Slammed the door, deadbolted it. Inside, Mia was crying. The thermostat, 50 degrees. Candles guttered. Scratches now on the inside door frame. Sarah burst in at 10 p.m. Snow-crusted. What the hell? My phone died. Tower outage. I spilled it all. She paled but rationalized. Hallucination? Carbon monoxide. We bundled Mia, drove to her sister's in Penfield. News on the car radio, Tommy's sled found near our shore. Divers pulling up bones. Old ones, railroad spikes tangled in rags. We crashed there, but sleep evaded. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. Static, then whispers. Jake. Sarah knows. Knows what? December 17th. I called in sick. Research Crow. Newspapers.com had scans. 1892 Rochester Democrat. Headlines screaming, Railroad Horror, 50 Feared Drowned. Elias Crow, foreman from Buffalo, vanished too. No body. Locals shunned Shoreline Drive after. Houses stood empty till the 50s. Sarah acted off. Distant, checking her phone obsessively. What aren't you telling me? I pressed. She teared up. Before Mia, I miscarried at 8 weeks. Felt like a boy. Named him in my head. Elias. Jesus. Our house overlooked the exact shantytown site. Had the lake sensed it? Grief as a beacon? That night, back home, foolishly to pack, the whispers invaded. Not outside, inside. From the vents, the fridge hum. Elias. Mama. Mia woke screaming, pointing at her closet. We checked. Tiny handprints in frost on the mirror. We fled to a motel off 104. Power statewide flickering from the vortex. CNN looped lake drownings. 5 more missing from Ontario shores. All kids or drunks lured out. r/Rochester doxed. Haunted houses. Ours topped the list. December 18th. Sarah vanished. Her car in the motel lot. Keys inside. Note on the dash. They're calling me. So cold. Tell Mia sorry. SPD dismissed it. Runaway wife, vortex stress. But her phone pinged near the lake. I grabbed Mia, drove to Shoreline. Blizzard raging, visibility 0. Our house dark, door ajar. Inside, temperature plummeted to 20. Whispers everywhere. Family reunion. Crow blood calls. Upstairs, Mia's room. Sarah on the floor, catatonic, staring at the window. They're here, she murmured. Outside, dozens of figures on the ice. Small, shuffling, circling the melt hole, grinning. Elias at the center, tall now, lantern in hand, flames unnatural blue. Buddy bolted past, out the door, onto the shelf. He vanished through the ice with a crack. Mia shrieked, "Daddy, boy inside me!" I turned. Her eyes, hollow pits. Tiny hands gripped my throat from behind. Sarah's voice, but not. "Warmth below, Jake." Elias promised. The shovel connected. I fought free, grabbed Mia, cold, limp, dragged Sarah down the stairs. Ice cracking lake-wide. Figures advancing, whispers deafening, names of the drowned, ours next. We piled into the truck. Engine roared, tires spun on the driveway as the shelf calved. A 100-yard chunk plunging, house with it. Sirens wailed distant. We made it to the highway. Sarah blinked awake. "What happened?" Mia giggled. "Ice playtime." December 20th. Vortex broke. Lake thawed patches. Divers found bones. 50 men, plus Buddy. No Sarah's trace, no Mia's. Just my truck at a Webster diner. PD ruled us presumed drowned. But I'm writing this from a burner laptop in a Syracuse motel. Cash only. Whispers follow on the wind. They're not ghosts. The lake remembers. Elias Crow still foremans the depths. Luring with what you lost. Grieving parents, lost kids. Your pain thaws the ice. If you're reading this, stay off Ontario shores in December. And if you hear your name,